back to another episode of Sentience, conversations about lives being lived. I am your host, Alison. On today's show, I'm going to discuss a method that has had a profound impact on me over the past several years. It has literally changed the course of my life. Identity development, or ID, also known as identity-oriented psychotrauma theory, IOPT for short outside of the United States, provides the opportunity for a person to look at their life through a resonation process, often returning to the earliest years, slowly unraveling what happened decades ago as a child and understanding how you learn to cope or survive, and how these elements manifest in your current life. These meetings are often referred to as self-encounters, and each session that a person does utilizes a sentence of intention that they create and lead. It may sound like an overwhelming or complex concept, but ultimately, it comes down to the very specific question of, what do you want? Dr. Franz Rupert, professor of psychology at Munich University of Applied Sciences, is the founder of IOPT, is an expert in the field of trauma, and has been practicing for the past several decades in Europe. The story of how this work came to the US is quite fascinating. In 2015, filmmaker Stephen Gyllenhaal was completing work on a documentary called In Utero that looked at early imprinting on a fetus while in the mother's womb, and which caught the attention of many practicing IOPT internationally, as there were several correlations between the film and the method. Stephen was invited to participate in a session, and well, the rest is history. In 2017, the Identity Development Institute was founded in Los Angeles, and in 2018, the Facilitator Training Program began, expanding its reach to those interested in participating in ID work. What started as a word-of-mouth grassroots effort has evolved into an incredible community of practitioners and participants around the world, and I am grateful to say that I am one of them. My life has not been an easy one. It has actually been quite devastating on many levels. I have always been a rather reserved person, keeping my pain and confusion within, trying to get through each day as best I could, and working to fit in with the world. My trauma biography is more a collection of volumes, and the impacts of that trauma manifested in several different ways over the years, including severe anxiety and depression, and inability to see my own existence, eating disorders, skin problems, chronic body pain, insomnia, panic attacks. The list goes on and on. Despite having done work in many different self-help and care methods, including traditional therapy, stepping stones as I see them, it was not until I started diving into ID work that I could begin to actually start working through the layers that were essentially holding what is known as the healthy I hostage. My true self was so buried in the trauma responses that it was impossible to actually achieve what I wanted for life. You know those feelings that keep coming back to you but feel like they are unrealistic? A pipe dream? Well, that is likely your healthy I shouting, "Let's make it happen," from deep within. When asked the question of what I want, what came to me was, I want to create television and film. A vision I had since I was young, yet always felt a million miles away. It has taken years on my journey, working through the layers, but here I am with the show that I created, brought to the screen, write, produce, direct, and host. I did it entirely on my own with my healthy I. Also, all of those trauma responses, well, they are distant memories now, each fading away as I revisited the layers of my life. Before I welcome today's guests, I would like to share a bit from the Institute's
introduction to identity development sessions, which we call ID sessions. It's a process of exploring identity through the power of our human interconnectedness. So what is an identity? Well, I'd say it's the part of us which would not be in the world if we weren't here. It's what makes us unique, irreplaceable, and 100% our own. For some of us, there have been profound challenges. Why? Well, in recent decades, psychology has emerged with an answer. Many of us were traumatized by childhood events, which have then echoed throughout our adult lives. These early events can seem small and insignificant, or large and very consequential. But either way, if there isn't enough support to integrate and release the impact of the trauma, it can threaten our survival and development. So how do we manage? We split. Splitting is a natural and appropriate human response to trauma. We've been doing it since conception, and we grew in the womb. So when traumatizing experiences hit us, we also split. As the founder of our method, Dr. Franz Rupert explained.
After the experience of trauma, we are split in 3 different parts of personality. And the one part I call the healthy part. The second part I call the traumatized part, and the third I call the surviving part.
So we have our healthy parts, which have stayed whole enough for us to function, grow, and engage in life. The traumatized parts have taken the hit. Like any wound, they have absorbed and hold our traumatic experiences. They're kept hidden deep in our unconscious. Third category, survival parts, help to repress the traumatic experiences in order to survive and in order to prevent further trauma. They create systems of behavior that keep us safe and protected. We can become hyperactive, aggressive, controlling, eager to please, anything that works. What is the cost of splitting? Well, splitting denies access to our full selves. It diminishes our capacity to be engaged, expressive, creative, and relational. It uses our energy and resources to keep the trauma memories buried and maintains our survival strategies instead of nourishing and supporting our ability to live fully.
Now, having covered a bit on the history of identity development and my experience with it, I would like to introduce today's guests from the Institute. Alyssa Canann and Anarah Sharif, both instructors, and they have played such a crucial role in the direction at the Identity Development Institute. Welcome to the show. I am so thrilled to have you here today. It's just absolutely amazing and wonderful to see you on the screen and being able to do this episode today. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Alison.
Okay, so because we have you both, we are zooming in for our interview today. So this will be a really fun way to talk about this work. So why don't we first start with each of you talking a bit about yourself. So Anarah, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Anarah Sharif. I am an instructor and a facilitator at the Identity Development Institute. Was formerly based in LA, but now we're a Zoom platform, so we are everywhere. And been doing this work for a few years now. I have also worked through other modalities for about 25 years in my own personal journey. And I do believe at the time that I found identity development that I was looking for a parts-based modality. It was exactly what I wanted and more. And I found that I really fell in love with the experience of the method. And it has been, a game changer for me. So I am happy to be here and share what I can with you all in this conversation.
Okay, thank you, Anarah. And Alyssa, can you talk a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Alyssa Canann, and I instruct and facilitate at the Institute, as you have heard. And I could say I have to heartily agree with the identity development work being a game changer. At the time that I encountered it, I was very focused on grief and end-of-life work as a coach, and the intersection of identity development work and themes of loss and wounding in a person's biography was very profound and meaningful for me. I am based in Southern California, as had been the Institute prior to the pandemic. And I am very grateful to be connected through Zoom with so many all over the world in both training, facilitating, and community.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. Thank you. Okay, so you've both talked a bit about how you came to the work, and you've been doing it for a while now. Can you both share why you have stuck with the work for so long, and why is it important to you? And we can just, because we're on Zoom here, we can just kind of jump back and forth. So if one of you would like to share why it's important to you.
Sure. When I came to the work, I was not looking for a modality. I wasn't really in search of anything. A friend whom I respected had invited me many times, repeatedly, to come and experience this ID work that she had been involved in. And finally, I came after several invitations, and I had come with kind of that attitude, which I had shared with her. I'm not really looking for anything right now. I'm not seeking to fix anything. I'm not seeking to change anything. I am really just showing up to honor the person who invited me. And then as I participated in it, I think it was an all-day event, I was so moved and so intrigued and really fascinated by this modality that didn't strike me as offering a fix or a result or a product, but rather was an invitation into immediate, direct, intimate relationship with myself, which was something, if somebody had asked me, I would never have said, oh, I'm looking for that, or, oh, how can I do that? But to experience that through resonating, through my own self meetings, was so it met a need I didn't know I had. And at the time, what was available for a deeper dive into the work was the facilitator training. So I said, I'm going to sign up for the facilitator training because I want to do more of this, because I want to continue to discover what this method that brings me in contact with myself has to show me about me. And that has only continued to unfold and grow through facilitating, ultimately the training, the facilitating, and now instructing.
I remember that. I remember you coming and us those early days. I just want to jump in because please. It strikes me that we were looking, like Alyssa, I was looking for a modality because I'm a coach, and I was looking to add that particular parts modality to my range of modalities that I wanted to give my clients. And actually what I also found very provocative was the fact that I could meet myself, and resonating really felt like a form of becoming more present with myself in a fun way, actually. I really, really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed the range of emotions and experiences that I could have. So I really enjoyed the resonating aspect. But yes, I jumped into the facilitator training, but I want to say that I got a way of caring for myself, a way of taking self-love and self-care away from the external and bringing it into myself, really learning how to interact with myself, my own self-talk, my own self-awareness, my own self-knowing, to it's not like the next level, but I really just learned how to do it, because I don't think we learn how to do that. I think the focus on, when we say love, is always on the outside. When we say self-care, it's still always just buying something or taking care of the outside. This was really profoundly loving and caring for myself on the inside. And so I got a whole lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, exactly. I have heard you, Anarah, describe this work as a form of deep self-care. And that is exactly the experience, which is what, in answer to your question, Alison, keeps me involved and keeps me continuing in this work, is that it isn't just words, a deep form of self-care. It's an experience of deeply caring for myself again and again, and also, as you said, learning, developing my capacity and my skill and my compassion in meeting and caring for myself inside.
Nice. I have one more thing to add, if I may. Alyssa, you mentioned not knowing, and I also realized in this method that there were parts of me that I had no idea needed caring for. The newborn self, my young self, the experiences of very early pre-verbal childhood, and being able to not just analyzing that or knowing it, but actually being able to be there for it again, almost witnessing the experience and then beginning to feel it and know it and be there, has given me access to parts of actually my body in a way that I didn't have before.
Thank you both so much for sharing that. It's such unique experiences and perspectives, yet this shared collective, and it's just such a gift, such a gift. So thank you both for sharing that. Okay, so I talked a bit about the history of ID work. Can you both talk a bit more about the plethora of benefits that come from this new psychology in the US? And also, I've always been very intrigued about how it specifically looks at conception through age 4 primarily, and how we respond to life from that time in our life. So can you both share a bit more on that to help the viewers understand what really sets this work apart from other methods?
Well, the human beings are very complex neurological organisms, and we are born, as you know, in a way prematurely. unlike many other species of mammal, of animals, we aren't born walking and feeding ourselves and with the capacity to run from danger. We are born and we are helpless for quite a long time. We require the care of other human beings in a way that is profound and really challenging, particularly in our, I don't know, particularly, perhaps it has always been this way, but particularly in our modern, industrialized, fast-paced, what Franz Rupert refers to as a traumatized and traumatizing world, there are many, many obstacles to our receiving the kind of nurture and care and attention that our nervous systems require from really conception and then birth through the time that we are able to independently communicate and walk and have the agency that that really many other species have the moment they're born. And so there are many opportunities for that process of our developing neurology, our developing attunement, our developing brain, for the nurturing of that to go awry. There are many opportunities for injury, if you will, or trauma, or wounding. It's an extended period of time with intricate development processes occurring and a profound requirement for connection and attunement from those who are providing us care. So this circumstance means that there can be many early traumas that interfere with our development in a way or cause us to adapt in order to survive, all of which occur before we're able to walk and talk. So when we talk, as Anarah mentioned, about parts of ourselves that we don't know need our care, or parts of ourselves that we don't know are in pain, or that we don't know need our attention, or that we don't know are sometimes driving the bus in our adult experience out of a wounding or a need or a threat that was experienced pre-verbally, that is something that this method allows us to access. This method allows us, through resonating and through the intention method, the possibility and the invitation of accessing parts of ourselves that hold trauma from before we could walk and talk.
Thank you, Alyssa. Anarah, did you want to add anything to that?
I think that was really comprehensive. Just to give some examples, I was in a conversation with somebody I just met at a party the other day, and she's a psychologist, and we don't advertise ID work as therapy at all, but she asked me what I did, and I spoke to her about it a little bit, and she said to me that she was just beginning in her own work with herself to look at that aspect, her birth and her young years. And she said that she was born prematurely without eyelashes or nails, and that she had no protection from the outside world. So she found it quite intense from what she understood. And she attributed her being defended, boundaried, over-boundaried perhaps, and going through the world that way, armored, because of this early vulnerability that she experienced. And it was just now in her 60s that she's getting to this piece. And I can say that my own trauma biography, also early birth, really played a much, much bigger role than I could have imagined. Because if you go to talk to somebody in therapy, or if you even, look at personal development and go through your own history, it's often just the history you can remember or what was told to you. This accesses parts of you that might have been glossed over, minimized. Oh, it was a terrible birth, but we both got through it. Oh, you were in hospital for a few weeks, but we brought you home as soon as we could. All of those few sentences that you're given that impact your early world. And we know now that that early impact really stays with us. It actually that part of us that's traumatized then stays in that place, and then we kind of work around it, so.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating actually how that happens, and how it just becomes this learned lifestyle.
Yeah, and Franz Rupert would say, know thyself, know yourself. And what that means is, we usually think, oh, this is what I do. I know myself. I know my likes and my dislikes. I know my experiences. I know my family. I know my family history. But this takes it to really next level, like really seeing yourself and connecting with yourself as that early, being able to, I call it, walk in your own psyche. Your psyche in a session is shown to you in 3D, and you have access to be able to connect with parts of yourself. And that is like a whole new level of knowing self, I think. For me, it was, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so in talking about how this method has existed in Europe for quite some time now, can you both talk about the different, the vast range of possibility for avenues that the work can be used with? In Europe, it's ranged from, it's quite popular with midwifery, as they understand it, and also working with rehabilitation of incarcerated individuals. It's such a huge spectrum of who this work can reach. So can you both talk a bit more about that, and having both spent a lot of time training in Europe, what you have observed and trends you may be seeing in the United States, or what you've been seeing evolve with this work and where it's being utilized.
Maybe I'll jump in a little, and then,
Right.
Just like Alyssa said, she came from the background of grief work and her own practice around that. And I won't get into that because that's hers, but everyone that comes into it through their own lens, their own experience, and their own personal place of wanting to offer something to the world, perhaps. Some people come in and they want to do the work just for themselves, even though they're in facilitator training. They want it just as a deep dive for themselves. And then the work goes out from there, ripples out from the person, wherever they play, whatever they do professionally, their own families, etc. I had my own interview with a European psychologist, actually, and lecturer in the term, she works in fertility and being childless without choosing it. So she spoke about that, and because that's her own area of research and her own personal experience, that's where she wants to offer this work to childless couples, people affected by that work. And so everyone has their, I feel like their own area. Would you say that's true, Alyssa?
Yes, I think it's important to note, as you said, Anarah, that this is not therapy. This is a modality of self-care, of self-meeting, of self-knowing, of self-examination, if you will. And all the material, all the context, all the essence, as I am doing the work, is me, my psyche, as you said, walking around in my psyche. So that means that, as you said, where each of us takes it is completely unique and informed by our unique psyche. I know you've heard the expression, the wound is the portal. And as people work with early traumas, as people work with their trauma biographies and enter, work with that portal to self-knowing, myriad responses, both that impact both immediate relationships and the world, come forth. And examples that, other examples of where this work is being brought by facilitators is in the field of addiction, in the field of people who, because that is their interest, because that is what brought them in, is perhaps working with the root of why they were self-medicating, of how they came to be surviving through addiction, then have gone out and worked with populations in their communities centered around what is the root of addiction. And the work with Alison, you mentioned, I think, midwifery and prenatal care, and that is a natural connection that harks back as well to the connection between Stephen's documentary In Utero and the interest of the European practitioners. And that is that to be able to work with the early traumas of people who become mothers is a way of impacting a way of interacting with possibly ameliorating the impact. I'll just talk about myself, the impact of if I were becoming a mother, the impact of my trauma biography on the developing human that I would be carrying. So as mothers, as parents, work with their own early trauma, that supports and furthers a deep care for developing neonates, infants, and children. So that connection is very, people are very active in doing this work with parents to be and parents.
It really is quite extraordinary that it can reach so many different people and where they're at in their life. And I feel like that's such a unique aspect of this work. Okay, so with that being said, I had talked a bit ago about the resonating process, and another unique aspect of this work that it's absolutely fascinating. So before we dive into that, I'd like to run a clip of a bit on how the resonating process works. So can we please run that clip?
So let's just talk a little bit about what it means to resonate. So what happens is somebody has a sentence, I want happiness. And they write out on the board, I want happiness. And they come up and they give you this word want. And you put it here, or you can hold it, or you can put it anywhere you want to put it. And you just feel what that word means, or what it feels like, or what comes into your head.
I feel confused, that's all I can say.
And strangers can do it for you in this group session. Or a facilitator can do it for you if you want to do a one-on-one session. Most people who've never tried anything like it are able to resonate deeply and powerfully.
So the first time I resonated, I actually missed the instruction portion of it before I was chosen to resonate in the group. And I remember having that moment, maybe almost stage fright, but I thought, oh, I missed the instructions, so I don't know what I'm doing. And I realized really quickly, within seconds, literally, that it didn't matter that I didn't know what I was supposed to do, because you're just sort of dropping into the subconscious field.
When someone's taking a picture of me, I have a hard time smiling or, whatever, but when I'm resonating, it's definitely from within. I'm taking cues from within about how I'm feeling.
It takes a while to trust oneself and getting in touch with the feelings or thoughts and simply reporting without getting too caught up in things that are happening around in the session.
What you do discover is, I'm not a person who cries very much, and yet I'm weeping. But this level of rage that I'm feeling isn't quite my kind of rage. And then when you report it to the facilitator and the subject confirms that's my rage, you start to believe it.
But I never felt like I'm losing myself, or I never felt out of control. I do feel very animated on the inside, and I really enjoy pushing the boundaries of how much I can feel and how much I can be and how much I can resonate even, how intuitive I can be internally, how expressive I can be.
So this aspect of the work, the resonating, it never ceases to stop fascinating me, because it's like what Stephen was saying in the clip, that you're serving as a resonator for someone else and experiencing these moments in their life that are removed from your own life, but yet have an impact on developing your own identity in many ways. And I can attest to that. It's extraordinary and it's incredible. And just when I think that I can't learn any more about it or grow any more with it, I'm pleasantly surprised to see that I indeed can. And so it's just incredible. And so can you, especially being instructors for the facilitator training program, can you both talk a bit about how unique the resonating process is and how people from all walks of life can come together and do this process for a person who is having a self-encounter?
I can say that in my experience, there has never been a person who has come to participate in an ID session who was not able to resonate. You spoke to anyone coming and resonating, and since really within a session, in the method, resonating consists of checking in with myself and reporting what I notice. It really is accessible to anyone. And certainly people have reported, I have had the experience of reporting nothing. What do I notice? I don't notice anything. And that is in itself, as the session unfolds, information, and it also changes. So, resonators don't actually do anything in a sense. A resonator isn't trying to do anything, feel into anything, understand anything, figure out anything. It's simply, here I am as a human being, having been asked to participate in this process with another, for another's intention. What do I notice? And it's always a surprise. It's always useful information.
Okay. And Anarah, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, it is magical, but the magic is really that we're all doing it all the time anyway, and that we're doing it when we're just a bunch of cells as well. And that's really how we start to put together our world. In the womb, we resonate our mom, and not just hear her heartbeat or get the nutrition through the cord, but we know her. We know her, and we feel her. And that's how natural it is. There's no hokiness, it's no science fiction to it. It feels lovely, and in some ways people will say it feels so special or spiritual because it feels like they're just really present with themselves. And that's a nice feeling. It's definitely a nice feeling, even though what you're resonating might not be pleasant. The experience of it takes us back to a very natural state, and it can be just profoundly resourcing again. And some people just come to resonate. They may not be so interested in doing sessions or encounters for themselves or training. They just simply love to resonate. And I certainly loved resonating. It was really freeing for me, profoundly freeing for me to be able to feel down deliciously to what I was feeling, and to be able to speak it, and to be in service to somebody whose session it was. Yeah, it was great. It is great.
Yes, and it's just, it's interesting how, you can come to a workshop and absolutely not feel called to do a session that day, but, serve as a resonator and still have both contribute to another's session and experience moments of growth within yourself, even though you're not doing a session for yourself. So it's incredible. It's incredible. So thank you both for sharing that insight. Okay, well, I know that the time is going very quickly, and this is work I love to talk about, so hours could go by, but I want to make sure that we cover everything today. So we've talked about this a few times today, that it's really important to stress that ID work is not therapy, nor is it a replacement for therapy. So can you elaborate on this so that the viewers have a better understanding of the distinctive differences between the two?
When I think of therapy, I think of sitting with a very kind and attuned person, if they're good, and help. And I speak. I have a narrative, and that person helps me understand my own narrative. Maybe has insight. Maybe can analyze it a little bit for me, or help me. Maybe diagnose me or label me so that I can understand what I'm saying and what I'm showing, and maybe any attributes of, behavior that I might not understand. So ID work is not that, in that the facilitator does not analyze, label, pathologize the subject or the person who's coming for a session, for a self-encounter. We are simply there to look with eyes that have understood the theory, and there is a theory behind ID work, which was created by some psychological models and some therapeutic understanding, as well as some attachment theory understanding. But for the purpose of understanding the psyche so that you can meet your own psyche in a healthy way. I'm always, the example that I give is that, people do sometimes terrible things to other people, and they might have a label on them because of that, given by a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But how does that help them? How does having that label, apart from perhaps understanding it or maybe medicating it, beyond that, what is done? What can they do? And I feel that ID work, and again, this isn't about not respecting therapeutic work, because there is such a place for it and a need for it, and I totally understand that. It's just that this work is not that. It is different in that you are navigating with someone beside you there for you to navigate your own trauma biography in a way that you can be with yourself, understand yourself, and connect with yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, the key thing in an ID session or self-meeting is that I am the one engaged in it. The facilitator accompanies me, but this is my sentence, my psyche, and my process. And the process is held in such a way that I have complete autonomy and agency as the person who has brought the sentence of intention to explore. So this is my exploration. I have autonomy, I have agency. Unlike my experience in a moment of trauma, in a moment of wounding, when I have no agency and I have no autonomy, and that if it's trauma, it overwhelms my nervous system, and I must split to adapt. In an ID session or self-meeting, I am completely in charge. And it's, when I think of therapy, when I have received therapy, done therapy, therapy is seeking to heal, support, fix, remediate something that I bring as the patient or the client. I come and I say, here's something I can't understand, cope with, resolve on my own, and I'm seeking help from the therapist. As Anarah said, the therapist can see things I can't see, perhaps, as they listen to me talk about what brought me in. And that is a completely, also as Anarah said, different type of process, independent, with its independent value and place and appropriateness. In the ID session or self-meeting, the facilitator is not looking to help or find a problem or find a solution in a way. That is all the purview or the domain of me, the person who has brought the intention and comes to make contact, to meet, to care for parts of myself that emerge during the process. In that, I am responsible for myself before, during, and after the process. Because there isn't anybody else with an intention in a way, or an agenda, or an acting on role. Only I am here with my parts, with my psyche, with an intention to meet and care. There isn't another person. The facilitator is a companion, not a person with a stake, in a way. Not a person with an assigned role that is directly linked to an outcome. The facilitator, of course, has an assigned and valuable role. The facilitator functions as a companion, as also a repository and source of the helpful information that is contained in the theory to offer as needed. But I don't quite know how to put it. The facilitator of an ID session or self-meeting is not there to help the person doing the work in that way in which the paradigm of therapy, all kinds of therapy, whether it's physical or mental or otherwise, has to do with healing something that needs healing. That isn't part of the role of a facilitator. That isn't part of what the facilitator brings. And it's key that I am there of my own volition, in my autonomy, with complete agency to meet myself.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I think that really helps the distinctions between the two. So, okay, well,
I'd like to add
we're almost out of
quickly.
time, you guys. So, really quickly, if you want to both share what some of the visions and goals are going forward for the Institute and work in the U.S.
Okay, I was going to add that this work is in the subconscious mind, the subconscious realm. And so I was going to add that in, but in the US, we have a few, now we're getting back to in-person sessions. We love Zoom. We love our international community. We love playing there. And we love being here, like it lends itself to being able to be here with you, Alison. But we also have now in-person sessions available as well, and quite a few coming up. Alyssa, we have one in January, right, in Orange County,
Yes.
California.
Mm-hmm.
We have one coming up in Hawaii, on the Big Island at the beginning of February. We have some in Dublin and Europe next year.
Yep,
And have I forgotten anything?
I don't think so. And all the details and information about that can be found on the Identity Development Institute website. And we, as Anarah said, are so grateful to be working in Zoom, to have had Zoom, and to continue to work in Zoom, and now get back into adding the in-person piece and extend both the ID process opportunities and training opportunities throughout our reach.
Yeah. And it's also, if people, I don't know, we didn't cover this, Alison, but it can be a one-on-one process as well with an ID facilitator. It doesn't have to be a group process. So that is also something that I wanted to mention.
Yes, definitely, because some people may prefer that, to have a more private experience. Yes, the possibilities are really endless with this work. It's extraordinary. Well, I'm so sad we have to bring the episode to a close already, but Anarah and Alyssa, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today to talk about identity development, its profound ability to reach each person where they are currently at, and the journey it has been for each of us. It truly has been a pleasure and an honor to have navigated together over the past several years. And I am just so excited for what lies ahead for the work at the Institute. I'm just so thrilled. To learn more about the Identity Development Institute, you can visit their website, which is identitydevelopmentinstitute.com. And there are online workshops weekly, Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 2 p.m., and Saturdays at 10 a.m., all Pacific Standard Time. Are the Saturday workshops every Saturday, or is that just once a month?
No, there are the calendar. The calendar on the website has the details, but they are not all weekly. They're spread out throughout the month.
Oh, okay.
Sprinkled.
Okay, so just make sure you check the calendar of events on the website for the most up-to-date available online workshops. And as Alyssa and Anarah mentioned, there are some upcoming in-person workshops. I'm very excited that there's going to be one in Hawaii, also Southern California, Europe, and it just keeps expanding. It's absolutely extraordinary, so to see this evolution. So yes, make sure you check the website for the most up-to-date on the calendar of events and any new opportunities that may be coming up in 2024. And if you are interested in attending an online workshop to either participate in your own self-encounter or to observe, your first registration will be free when you use the code Sentience. So if you feel interested in learning more about the work or you feel called to the work, make sure to use the code Sentience because your first attendance will be free. Thank you for joining us for Sentience, Conversations About Lives Being Lived. All episodes can be watched on Akaku channels in Maui County and streamed everywhere on the Akaku Maui Stream app. You can also view all episodes on our YouTube channel, Sentience, Conversations About Lives Being Lived. And follow us on Instagram at @SentienceShow for updates, guest highlights, and opportunities to be on the show. I am Alison Samalita, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.